Hey everybody, it's Tammy from Wisconsin, and it's Friday night. So yesterday, I was having a discussion with my sister, and that big green-eyed monster popped up. You know, envy. So I got to thinking, is there a way to get rid of that big green-eyed monster? The reason why it popped up with my sister is my sister um, after she first got married, for the first couple of years, she worked full time. But as soon as they had their oldest son, she hasn't worked since then. She's, worked part time at daycare after the kids were in school. She worked at the Y for years, and she did, well, a year or two ago, she was working at a daycare after the Y. But since then, she hasn't been working at all. So I always envied how she could spend so much time with her kids because since my whole adult life, other than when Stuff was first born, I've worked full time. When he was born, we decided we could afford me working part time, and so I did that for a little while. And it was the 80s, and manufacturing in the Milwaukee area took a poop. It got it got real slow, and Leon got laid off. So I went back to work full time. He found a job pretty quick because you could find a machinist jobs pretty quick back then. And so then I went part time, and then a few more months later he got laid off, and we went back and forth with that for a while because it just seemed like the places that were hiring would hire him just till they got a job run out, and then they laid everybody off. So by the time Stuff was 3, I was back to work full time and probably more. I mean, the last few years, for like the last 5 years before, no, a couple years. The last year is the first year that I worked under 60 hours a week for at least 5 years. So I cherished time, and I wasn't a person that cared about clothes or fancy cars or a big house. If it was up to me, we'd be living in a log cabin in the middle of nowhere. If I could get the Packer games on TV, I'd be fine. But my time, it just never seemed like I had enough, especially with the kids. Our oldest, I remember when he was a baby, and now he's already 29 years old. It's like, what the hell? So that's where the big green-eyed monster popped up with me, is when I've seen how much time my sister could spend with her family, especially now too with my folks getting older and Leon's dad getting older. We'd like to spend more time with them, but they both live out of state, and it's not like we can go there on the weekend. My sister, she lives in the closest big town by my folks, so when they have to go into town, they go out to lunch with her, and it's like, Jesus, you know, it's, it just didn't seem fair. And my parents live on a lake, so all summer long, anytime my sister felt like going out to my folks' house, she could go and visit. So I was really envious of that. So that big green-eyed monster kept on getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, then we get to talking, and Kelly hadn't said specifically, but I've talked to a lot of friends, that they look at me and the big green-eyed monster comes out. And I'm like, well, what the heck do you mean? What for? And they're like, well, one of the things that they envied was the fact that working outside of the home and having my own career, you have an identity that's not just mom. And I said, well, all I ever wanted to be was a mom. When anybody asked me growing up, what are you going to be when you grow up? I'd say, a mom. And that's it. And when I'd say that to my friends, they just looked at me like I had a screw loose or something. So because they envied the big green-eyed monster would come out, because they would like to have an identity other than just mom. And the other thing they said is, being that they weren't working outside of the home, a lot of times people made them feel guilty. And they felt guilty themselves for spending money because they weren't contributing to the household finances. They would certainly not want to spend any money on themselves, and they were always worried about pinching pennies here and there because money never seemed like they had enough of it. So when you're not making your own paycheck, then you just feel like, well, it's not really your money. So that was the other thing with them. That was the other big green-eyed monster with them is not having the financial resources to even go out to dinner on a Friday night, which is big in Wisconsin. So that was the big things with them. So then I got to thinking, so how do you make that big green-eyed monster go away? And I thought, what if you had the best of both worlds? And isn't that what a home-based business is? You know, that's why we are doing what we are doing, because if with a home-based business, you're home and earning money, so you have the time flexibility to do what you want. We could travel where we want and still make money with what we do. We can be at my folks and be making money. We could be with Leanne's dad and making money. We could be traveling in California and still making money. That is huge to us, to have that time freedom, to be able to do what we want with our time and still earn money. So that's what you need to do. If you want to get rid of that big green-eyed monster in your life, well, then what you need to do is there's a link below in the description. Click on the link, and then it'll take you to our information video. Watch the video, enter your email, watch the video, and as soon as you join up, we'll get a hold of you. So we'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a great weekend.